Good evening and welcome back to the Upset Podcast. Tonight we are talking about growing up with sense. Coming up next. Hey, once again, welcome back to the Upset Podcast. We are so happy that you tuned in and we're happy to have the crew with us.
Oh,
It's spring break,
David,
right? It's
David's
Upset
three
spring
mighty
break.
men.
Yeah.
I believe Keen is going to join us, but nevertheless, we are here. We're at live. We're happy to be back live. How has everyone been out there? And we want to hear from our friends. Just come on and say hello to us. But we're happy to be back. Excited about. Oh, hello, Miss Van Putten, Miss Rosalie. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. I miss seeing the names pop up. I know sometimes we have to pre-record, but nothing beats being live. So
nothing.
Thank you for tuning in. Yeah. All right, guys. So what's been catching your eye this week in the news and the headlines, news feed?
So much talk on the timelines from Shador Sanders and the NFL draft and why he had to wait so long to be drafted, even though he's so daggone good.
Yeah, man.
Black fatherhood, how talented, confident, Black capable people are a threat to white institutions and power. We can go a lot of directions with this conversation.
Yeah.
But one of the ones that really caught my attention was what's happening in my home state of Florida. Over almost 1,000 people have been deported in a matter of 4 or 5 days. And so of all the states in America, apparently Florida is in cahoots with Trump's administration in his efforts to really get those people out of here. And it's crazy.
1,000 in 4 or 5 days. And this thing is impacting so many people who thought they were safe because they had documentation or they followed the process. And now they're realizing none of that matters. If they decide that they don't want you around and they can create things. And even in the process of trying to prove your innocence, you're still being detained other places for a significant amount of time, not knowing when you'll return. So, it really has a lot of people fearful about even traveling leisurely because of all that's going on. This is just ridiculous.
Well, speaking of deportment, of course, everyone took note of the death of Pope Francis.
Yeah.
And what many people forgot about is that early on, Pope Francis squared off against Donald Trump. This is back in his first term, saying that anyone who determines to put a wall around their country to stop people seeking freedom from getting in is not a Christian. His words exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And he took Donald Trump to task. And of course, Donald Trump now is acting like he really was friendly with the Pope and saying things like he was a nice guy and stuff. That kind of casual stuff. I'm going to go prophetic right now. When Donald Trump, when he came on board, Jimmy Carter died, a person whose example took to task Donald Trump. And now Pope Francis has died, another person whose example has taken him to task. I submit to you that before this year ends, that Donald Trump will face judgment himself.
Mercy.
And I don't know exactly what that will look like, but I submit that to you, because I believe that God is trying to reach this man, and this man will not hear.
Mercy. Well, as we say, time will tell for sure. But yes, that was definitely big in the news this week about the death of the Pope. And my understanding is that the process for choosing a new Pope is like a 2-week period. Because I was like, oh, how does it even done? I've never paid attention before.
Yeah.
And they're like, they come together and they meet, and
it's done in secret.
It's called the concave.
Yes,
It's called.
conclave. Yeah.
Let's say
I mean,
convocation.
Keenan knows all about these things.
He's not here to tell us.
Cool? You know what's cool? There are actually about 2 African men who are high on the list to be considered.
I heard that.
An Asian gentleman. And so it's not just white men who are being considered. But depending on who
can give us the insight.
Oh, yeah, Keenan can give us the scoop on what's happening.
We said concave, and who should, as soon as we said concave, Keenan.
Yeah, Talia, I'm surprised you made it back so soon.
Oh, okay. Now we get it. All right. This is like traded. Telling on each other.
Whatever y'all talking about.
So we were talking about the Pope and the process of choosing a new one. And GP was saying that right now there are 2 African individuals who are considered in the running, possibly for consideration. So
interesting.
So someone says, how easy is it for a refugee to enter the Vatican?
You can visit. I mean, if you can travel to Italy, you can get to the Vatican.
All roads lead to Rome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, I just want to say this to Rodney. A lot of times these are not necessarily people who are illegal. I mean, I was speaking more so of those individuals who have documentation and are still just being sent away just because, they can do that.
Our friend misreads the gentleman who just made that note. He misreads our point. We're not talking about, first of all, human beings are not illegal. I mean, you can say undocumented, but they're not illegal. That's the first thing. We're not talking about legality or illegality. What we're talking about is a mindset that says that there's certain people we don't want here. Right. And that kind of exclusionary mindset and spirit that is reflected in this president. It's not simply about what's legal and who's documented. It's the idea that there's certain people they don't want. If you take note, there is no sense of rejection for people from Europe who are trying to immigrate to this country whatsoever. And so my friend, before you take on the task of trying to correct what you perceive to be a lack of discretion about legalities, what we're talking about are spiritual matters now. And that is, we have a president who is exclusive in his way of thinking. He is clannish, and he instead of looking at people the way Jesus did, the least of these, he tries to figure out how to preserve those who are at the top of the pinnacle. We're talking spiritual things now.
Yeah. So I've never been to Rome. Have any of you ever traveled there? But Don is telling us that this is an amazing place to visit. Just throwing that out there.
That's what I hear.
Anybody?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I know a pastor who went there, and you're not supposed to take pictures, but they took a whole bunch of pictures.
We always find a way.
Back. Yeah.
And Pastor Coaxum is right. Conclave is a great movie to watch.
Is it?
Oh,
I'm gonna check it out. Is it on like Netflix?
I believe you. Yeah, I know it can be streamed. No car chases, no naked people. Not a whole lot of profanity, but it is great storytelling. It is just. I mean, and of course, there's a twist at the end that just really grabs you. Yeah, it is worth watching.
Thanks for that.
I mean, the only thing more interesting than the conclave is a gathering that'll be held this summer, I believe, in St. Louis.
Whatever would that be there, Tom?
There's some gathering in St. Louis. What is it?
The Conference of Generals of Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah, you're right, Rod. Pastor Grissom is right. Yeah, cultish is an even better word.
See, Rodney.
Of course, with Donald Trump, clannish might be a better word still with a K.
Yeah, I'm not surprised anything that comes out of this administration. Nothing surprising.
Yeah.
Anything's fair game in that mind.
Mhm.
So I said the SDA conclave. But I know we're going to transition to our topic, but I did want to shout out because I saw Rodney's name, which reminded me that earlier today I went to Pine Forge Academy. Today's there. I saw your son too, Keenan.
Oh, really?
I hope you knew he was
That's
there.
where he's at.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry. I hope you knew he was there.
Yeah, no, I knew he was there.
They have their annual. It used to be called junior senior banquet, but now it's a prom.
Yeah.
You know? And so it was nice to see the promenade, all of the young people coming out in their dresses, and the gentlemen with their nice suits, and the families out there supporting them. It was so cool. Shout out to Pine Forge Academy. We hope they're having a good time right now. The students, the juniors, and the seniors, just shouting them out.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, Latasha. Yeah. I know we have to get to our topic, but there are two. We don't even have to mention it, right? I just want to throw it out here. You know, number one, this is huge for sports fans, but Shedeur Sanders, he dropped down to the 5th round. You know, people like, how does that happen? How does he the most precise
PG brought
quarterback?
That up.
Yeah.
Okay. If y'all already covered that, but also your boy Shannon Sharp, there, Tally.
What's going on? My boy, huh?
Oh, I forgot about that
boy. He's my boy now. Okay, give him to
me. Your boy Shannon Sharp.
You know, but for those who don't know, Shannon Sharp has found himself on the wrong end of an attempt to be sued for sexual assault. He was involved in some relationship with a young white woman, and they recorded him and saying some things that were embarrassing, but it wasn't illegal. But it appears to me that it's a shakedown, you know. But it looks like a shakedown.
$50 million they're asking for.
It's amazing.
Well, hopefully he'll learn. Like one of his guests told him, Shannon, by the time you start trying to date some women your own age, you
right?
know?
Told him.
Yeah,
this
that's a lot of
young lady was like what, 21
commentary.
years old? Yeah.
That's a lot of what I do.
Yeah.
Whew, now that we got that,
my boy.
He said those women gave him peace. Yeah, they gave him peace.
Wow.
There's so many jokes that can be told as a look at that line, but I will not.
Can I quote Dr. Umar Johnson?
Oh Lord.
Black queens forever, snow bunnies never.
Oh, that's right.
Mercy.
Well,
let's transition to our topic.
Exactly. Yeah. This might be the ninth. Somebody going along right with you, right?
Well, you know, Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, Frederick Douglass.
Call the roll.
We'll all tell you that race is secondary. You know.
Yeah. Is right. Okay. Well, it's time for us to transition into our topic this evening. One thing we always said about the Upset Podcast, we like to have a good time. We like to cover topics that challenge our thinking, but we also like to cover topics that will challenge us to do better in certain areas. And some of you may or may not realize that April is Financial Literacy Month.
Okay.
Right? And each year we try to cover some aspect of finance to help not entertain, but inform us of how we can do better, particularly in that area as people of color, because this is one of those areas where, you know, sometimes we don't do well because we don't know, and then we're not trying to know. So we're trying to help everyone try to know so we can do better overall for the next generation in particular. And so we have a guest with us. We love when we have guests. We have a guest to the Upset, and I'm going to bring her on now. This is Jasmine Brann. Thanks for joining us, Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Tasha, for the invitation. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
For sure. Well, again, my name is Jasmine, and first and foremost, I'm the daughter of the Most High King, and I am an educator. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I founded a nonprofit. I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter. And I love to let my light shine however God places in my heart to do so. And for today's conversation, I'm really leaning into my passion around financial wellness. Everyone deserves to be financially well. It doesn't matter where you come from, what language you speak. It is a right. that we all have. And as a Christian and as a believer, it is something that I'm very passionate about and sharing, helping the next generation be ready to build wealth.
I love that. And we're happy that you're here to share with us. Now, before we jump into asking any questions or anything, there's a content creator, financial guru, I call him, Ramit Sethi. Are you familiar with him?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I love to watch his podcast and his information. And one of the things that he often asks his guests is something that I'm going to ask our podcast co-hosts right now. And that is, what do you remember learning about money as a kid? Like, what were some of those messages that you remember hearing? One, I could start off with one. Money doesn't grow on trees. Did you guys hear that with your kids?
Yeah.
Hear that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. What are some other things you remember about money or hearing about money as a kid?
In the store.
Okay.
We don't got it. Stop
Yeah.
asking for it.
Yep. We got it. No.
I remember as a child getting an allowance, but not really understanding that I needed to save some of that allowance. Instead, when the ice cream truck came by, I was with my friends, we were getting some treats. So an allowance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the worst lesson I learned was that money was for spending. That the idea of money was so that you could spend, and that I never really learned a lot about the management of it. It was, spending it, and in the hood, you wanted to become very, very observable in your spending. You wanted the newest sneakers, the newest outfits, and all like that. Conspicuous spending.
Yeah, so true, Charlie. I was just giving.
Go ahead. Yeah, I can't remember anything. I'm trying to think. Can't think of any lesson.
It doesn't have to be a lesson. It could just be any commentary regarding money. And sometimes it's negative. A lot of times, he asks the guest, it's something negative.
Yeah, the only I got is only money.
It's only money.
Yeah, in other words, the money, only the money that you just lost gambling. It's only money. That's about it.
Oh, that's a whole nother. Yeah. Okay, cool. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to hear what we remember. I mean, I know that from what I observed from my parents as a kid, I know there were times of want and there were times of plenty, and you could always tell. One, GP, when you went to the store and you either got what you wanted or you didn't. You knew when money was there or when it wasn't. But I think when we were growing up, my parents did a good job of not making us feel like we were. I don't think we were poor, but I'm sure there were times like when my mom was at home with us where money wasn't flowing. But I don't think I even really learned what money is, like the tool it is, until I was a full-grown adult and working at a bank. That's really when I learned money is a tool and not, like you said, Tally, something you get and then you spend. But anyway. Yeah. Okay. I want to see what people from our chat were saying. Rodney said, carry a wad of money with the ones in the middle.
I can see that. Grissom has some ballers and shot callers in his family.
Somebody said, allowance, what's that? And that's one of the questions we're going to talk about. Some parents don't even believe that children should have allowance. And so we're going to get into all of that. Okay. All right, let's open up some can of worms. And I just want to tell to the people in the chat, too, if you have questions or things you want to talk about, other things you remember learning about money, go ahead and engage us in the chat. We'll definitely love to hear from you. Were you gonna say something?
I got a question. And okay. Jasmine, thank you for being on, for the upsetters, and welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. But my question is, where did this passion come from? Just wanted to talk to children and educate. Yeah, where does this passion come from?
For sure. Well, I'll take it back just a little bit, building on Tasha's question around how do we really learn about money? I really want to shout out and acknowledge my parents because yes, I got an allowance, but also it was that I was observing, unconsciously, as most of us were when we were children, what behaviors and what habits they had. We took a vacation every summer. Maybe we didn't have the most money to fly to Europe and to South Africa and to Asia, but we got in our little car and we drove to the beach. one memorable vacation that we took was driving across the country. Yes, I said that correctly. Driving from the East Coast to the West Coast and back. But I tell you, we stayed at, inexpensive hotels / motels along the way. And my parents explained that to us. But it again was such a memory for me as I think about how my parents taught me that, money is connected to experiences. And what Ramit Sethi, one of the financial gurus, says, what does your rich life entail?
Yeah.
Necessarily mean having millions of dollars, maybe or maybe not. Maybe it means having the time to spend with your family. Maybe it means the time to be able to give back to your community. So, being able to define and explain what it is that you desire to do with money, because like you said, it is just a tool. And yes, I see people in the chat saying money should be respected. And thanks for the love in the chat too, to my friend Metro. But to answer your question, Keenan, as it relates to really where did this passion come from? I really got fired up during the pandemic. You all remember, locked in our homes, on quarantine, go anywhere. And I just started to consume content and podcasts. Anthony O'Neill.
Yeah.
I was familiar with Dave Ramsey. I had gone through his program through our church. God bless our church and our believers who are helping to train us in that way. And so I understood the basics of, stay out of debt, save, invest in your retirement. But during the pandemic, 2020, 2021 is really when I started to feel accelerated based on the information I was getting. And this is one of the key points for today's, talk, as you all asked me to join, is that we have to be explicit with teaching young people and teaching the next generation about money. It's not going to come through osmosis. While children are very intelligent, they're very curious, they're very observant, there's power in being very intentional in how we teach them and how we direct them. The second thing is that we have to expose them. So during the pandemic, as I was learning, reading books and talking with folks who were farther along in their journey around, building wealth, I was exposed to new ideas that I was unfamiliar with. And notably, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that really turned on the light switch for me because, he talks about his educated father, had a good old government job. That's me, government job, all the things, kind of have my ducks lined up in a row. But when his child asked him, can you teach me about money, Dad? He said, I can't. Go over to your friend's dad who has a business and has real estate investments. And I think he can teach you. And so it was that, God was speaking to me in that season. And as you know, once we get information, it's our responsibility as believers to therefore share that information. And so I'm very passionate and excited to share what I've learned with young people, with kids, because we're not learning this information, right?
Jasmine, I wanted to ask you a question. You're an educator. You're an educational administrator. Yes. When I was younger, I remember there were classes that taught that kind of helped prepare you for real life, home economics, things like that taught you some things. What's being taught now from a curriculum perspective that allows our children to learn the practical aspects of resource management?
Yeah. So, math is a required subject in schools, right? Pre-K to grade 12. And so as it relates on like a fundamental level, a foundational level of numeracy, right? Arithmetic, that is being taught, that is being covered. Obviously now the curriculum is a little bit more conceptual as opposed to algorithmic as it was, when we were growing up, but nonetheless, math is in place. There are also connections that we make in teaching and learning today to the real world, to applications, when you buy something, all those types of things. But as it relates to personal finance, Pastor Tally in particular, it's not required. It's not a required subject, right? In about half of the 50 states, it's becoming a requirement in high school to have a half a semester personal finance class. So again, waiting to 11th or 12th grade to understand these ideas. And let's be clear, research says that children as young as 3 years old can understand basic money concepts. And by age 7, research says these money habits are in the process of being established, right? How do I determine what do I need and what do I want? And how do I show a sense of patience and have delayed gratification. Those ideas can be instilled from a very young age. And as the Bible teaches us, right? Train up a child in the way that they should go. And when they're older, they won't depart from it. So, you know, the argument or the thesis here is that we can't wait until a child or a teenager is 17, 18 years old to teach them these lessons of discipline and investing and helping your community and helping your family. It's something that requires this urgency now. And again, I'm so glad that you all have facilitated this space. So shout out to you for making this message come to life, and this platform very helpful for our community.
Well, let me follow up. I mean, so as an administrator, as an educator, do you see a need to curricumize this training? And if so, why is it not being done in our schools? I mean, you know, we all, some of us can remember when we used to have classes that would teach you plumbing and certain home skills. They're gone. So why is it that these skills aren't being curriculumized to be taught to our children?
Yeah, that's a good question. Tally, I think that we can definitely make some connections to injustice, right? But one could also make an argument that maybe this is intentional.
Yeah.
Because
Amen.
It is.
I agree.
And so I'm not necessarily a conspiracy theorist, but I am a woman of God and a woman of faith. And so, I believe that God, tells us which way to go and then bring people along with us once we get the information. So it is unfortunate that it's not being explicitly taught in schools, but there are educators like myself and others who are passionate. And so we integrate the information in, right? Like, so I'm an elementary school principal, but I teach our 5th graders, right? And I've written these books to be able to, hopefully to the masses, share this information that will help facilitate the dialogue and the discourse at home and in classes. Our educators at my school, we did help to write curriculum that we submitted, and it was approved by the district. So now it's not only happening in our school, but happening in other elementary schools. One of those lessons, which I'm really proud of, is that in our 5th grade class, they learn how to buy a home. So what is
more than a monopoly?
For that would deem you worthy for a lower interest rate, right? Why is this an important investment to make? And so we can't wait on Superman, right? We can't wait on somebody else to rescue and to save us and do things that we can do for ourselves as a community. And so once we know better, we do better. But it is that we need this mission and this movement to be mobilized by more individuals who see the importance, because our kids are ready. When they're asking good questions. What is life insurance? And what is, oh, you mean a car can be taken back if we don't pay the note? I have questions.
Yeah. Yes, it can be.
No, it's funny you should say that, because some of the things you're even mentioning, I don't even think some adults have a good understanding of. And so hearing you say that there's a curriculum that you developed, I think you said for 5th graders, is that around the age where I know you said as early as 3, they can understand certain concepts. So at what age should we be having these kind of conversations with our children?
Yeah. So Tasha, they're never too young. Right? We should always be talking and singing and engaging our young people, right? We have right now a lot of distractions in the world. There's social media, there's the YouTube, all these types of things, but nothing will ever replace the value of mentoring and teaching our children directly from the womb, right? And so you're never too young, to answer your question. It's always the right time to teach children and teens and adults about money. Like you said, Tasha, some of these things, maybe new for our listeners, maybe new for folks in our community. But again, we're sharing it today with love. I think just the way in which we teach our young people obviously has to be curated to their ability to understand, right? And so using literature, which is why, again, God prompted me to write a children's book and then a teenage version of that book as well. There are also songs. And when we go into church, y'all, let's be clear. So again, I love to sing, but there are connections that we make through songs, right? And gospel songs, right? Peter and John went to pray. They met a lame man on the way. He held out his palms and he asked for some alms. And this is what Peter did say, right? Talking about, the nature of poverty and how, you know, they were
Finish that
able to,
song.
what do you say?
Finish
Finish
that
the
song.
Tally, back up, GP and Tally.
Oh man, I'm ready to have something here.
You know, it's all about making these connections. Or Kirk Franklin's silver and gold. I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold, right? Like talking to our children about what do these songs actually mean. So again, through literature, through songs, through conversations. And that goes back again to this key idea that I hope, if nothing else comes across from today, is the importance to be explicit and to expose our children and teenagers to what are the possibilities of what they can achieve. So, you know, when you're talking with, yes, your 3-year-old, do you want that cookie or do you need that cookie? That is a basic foundation of what budgeting is, right? And something that a lot of Americans still have a struggle with, and that is budgeting and allocating their resources appropriately.
So I do have another question, a few questions. What are the common mistakes that parents make when it comes to educating their kids with finances? Well, yeah, I'll ask that first.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention one too before I go to that question, is playing games like Monopoly, right? So not only are you engaging in conversation as you're playing those games, but the scenarios that are built into those games allow for these real life applications to really be illustrative for our young people. So yeah, some common mistakes that we make, Keenan, are, yes, we're not being explicit and we're not exposing. So that goes together with what I said previously. But also we need to be more intentional about establishing generational wealth, right? So yes, in this current generation, maybe we're learning the lessons. We're learning more about, you know, how to save and how to, you know, budget and things of that nature. But are we setting up the next generation so that way they are now not as far behind maybe in this race, or as I like to use this metaphor, this game of life, right? You're giving them a head start because you have, you know, made these investments for them on their behalf. Because you and your older age may be able to rely on your retirement fund and not necessarily put an excess burden on your family for your care. All these types of things that we need to think about. And I want to show, I'm sitting here in like a load of books. But this one is one that I definitely recommend. It's called 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power by Dr. Boyce Watkins. And he outlines these ideas, and one of the commandments that he outlines is that Black wealth training must be a rite of passage. He also talks about leaving a worthy inheritance and ownership. And so these are some of, you know, the mistakes that we can sometimes fall into because we're just living and running the rat race of life, but not thinking about the future, you know, and not having a vision for what do we see for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. So God help us.
So I want to ask you something, because I think this could fall into that category of mistake. So my daughter, she's in the 8th grade, and they're taking one of those classes where they are learning, I think it's called like life skills, where they're learning how to select a career and looking at the salaries of these various careers. And so of course she comes home and is like, oh, how much do you make? How much does that make? You know, and and I'm like, oh, should I share that with her? You know, like I'm toying with her because, you know, kids have, even though that's something, salary transparency is another wave too, in terms of, you know, people feeling comfortable share your salary. But there was a time when you never did that, right? But now I'm like, how will I help her understand this if I don't give her some context? So I gave her a range. So what are your thoughts about sharing?
What was the range?
Allegheny East Conference.
Yeah, I gave my son a range. He definitely does not want to be a pastor. I'll tell you that.
So yeah, like, is that something parents should do? Should you share with your child, this is how much this household brings in a year?
I personally believe yes.
Okay.
So my 14-year-old Josiah know how much is my salary. I also believe in letting him know what are the household expenses, how much is the mortgage,
Right.
what type of investments do we have, how much do we have in his 529 for investment account for college. And I'm like, hey, if you get a full ride scholarship, honey, you know, that will now go into an IRA, you know, we can use for other purposes. So your job is school. You know, we have this habit to ask our young people, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? I want to be a photographer. I want to be a nurse. All these types of things. And I heard it somewhere. I don't know. But I thought it was very compelling. And it was a contrast to that question and asking, what problems do you want to solve when you grow up? You know, what difference do you want to make? What legacy? What impact do you want to have in your family and in society? And honestly, you don't have to necessarily wait until you graduate from college to do those things. Even now, we have examples of young people, and as we look in the Bible as well, King Josiah, and so many others who were at a young age, but called for a higher purpose and a higher assignment. And so it's our job as parents, as guardians, as adults, as teachers, educators, pastors, would have all of us, if we have young people in our lives, and we all do, is to help guide and help shape them and how God designed them to be, because they're all fearfully and wonderfully made in his image, not ours, not in terms of what it is that we want for them. Maybe you want them to be a lawyer or a doctor, but what is it that God has on this young person's life? And then praying with them in that and encouraging them to seek the Lord for what that calling is. So yes, as it relates to being very explicit, you know, with our young people, what is our salary? What is our household income and our expenses? What is that like? Because that also helps them to think and develops their metacognition and understanding of, oh, you know what, this is going to be an expensive year for our family. We got the prom, like you started with, Tasha. Graduation, we're trying to take a family vacation to go on to the reunion, Bahamas, I don't know, whatever it is. So what they should start understanding is cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. So now when it's time to ask, well, can I get that latest video game or that new purse or whatever it is, maybe there's a second thought that comes because there's a broader understanding of where, we are here in the bigger picture. So yeah, I'm of the belief that we explicit and talk about our salaries and expenses with our kids.
Yeah. Jasmine, when you said 529 savings plan, I almost jumped out of my seat because I'm on a mission in my context in Virginia to raise the level of awareness of these opportunities for families and the community. And I'm thinking about, okay, how can I do a community blessing every month where we're partnering with a bank to gift every mother and child $100 to get started so that they can be aware that this exists and they can leverage it. So how can pastors champion these type of activities to not just talk about money when it's time for tithes and offerings and bringing all the tithes into the storehouse?
Well, you just named an excellent example, pairing it with that baby blessing, in addition to getting the book and the certificate and all these types of things. We really want your child to be on a strong path to building wealth. And here's one of the ways to do that. So check out the bank. You have that partnership. Yeah, we have to be resourceful and we have to be innovative. Long and gone are the days also of the traditional banking, right? You go up to the teller and all those types of things. Our kids nowadays, they don't even know what this is. And this is fake, by the way, y'all. This is fake. But they're not familiar with coins, denominations.
It looks kind of real, right?
Look good.
It does look real.
Yeah. Sister got a sideline over down there in Maryland.
Yes. But all they see us go tap, tap, tap when we're at the store. They just see, an Amazon package has arrived at the door. So yes, this idea, as you said earlier, Tasha, like money doesn't grow on trees. For some of our kids and our teens, it feels that way though, which is why I have to couple what's happening with these explanations of, did you know that your senior fees cost X, Y, and Z?
Right.
Did you know, this is a real example, y'all, friends, because we friends. When you talk about money, you become real intimate with people. Let me let you know. Right? So our water bill, because my son takes long showers, he likes to be real clean. He's a teenager, right? But it's like, we tell him, well, this is how much the water bill was.
Mm-hmm.
And we can directly connect that to your long showers.
Yep.
Mm.
So want him to see and understand the impact of what he's doing. And these are making these connections in their brains. God help them for the future when they're running their homes on their own, and when they're running their businesses on their own. I would say too, I'm sorry, I get really, really excited about this, everybody. But the other thing that we do a disservice to our young people is, and I'm praying that we all can correct it, is that we need to teach our young people that they too can be content creators, and they can build their own table.
Come on.
And they don't have to rely on getting this good old government job and all these types of things. Not to say anything is wrong with that. I have a good old government job, and I'm very grateful. It's my ministry, it's my passion. But at the same time, God has given us all talents and skills. And so we need to explore entrepreneurship with young people, and creating jobs that can be possible through that. And so, there's so much to do, and to have conversations with our young people, and to make them age appropriate. Obviously, the conversation with a 16-year-old is different than the conversation you have with a 6-year-old. But the discipline and the importance of these conversations, it spans all ages.
So instead of only having Education Day, we can also have Entrepreneurship Day.
You better come on.
I like that. That was gonna be one of my questions. How can the church get more involved? But I did want to bring this comment up that Donna had posted in the chat. It's not healthy to keep whining about not having money to buy things that they want. Because I do remember growing up, and it's like, we don't have any money, but then you'd see them pay for something, you're like, wait, I thought we didn't have any money, so how'd you buy that? So it's like changing the dialogue of. So what I have to share with my children is, I don't have money for that because you have to use it for this. Like, there has to be a continuation of that sentence. Just, I don't have money for that, and then you swiping your card. Like, it doesn't compute with kids. They just feel like you're lying,
So Jasmine, if there's a parent listening, and they give their kid allowance, so where do you land on the side of the fence when it comes to allowance? Yeah, what about that?
Yeah. So I was a kid who did get allowance. Again, I didn't necessarily understand how best to budget that allowance. But I do believe that allowance can be helpful. And I think that each household should make that determination of how much an allowance should be, if at all, right? We can't make assumptions that everyone may be in a place to give an allowance. But I think also with that, for cleaning your room, for example, I'm not sure if an allowance is necessarily merited for that. There are some responsibilities that young people have just because they're a part of the family, right? Maybe going above and beyond, maybe there is an opportunity to reward them or incentivize it in some way. But yeah, I think that allowance can be helpful, but again, it varies according to family and to age. But using it as an instructional tool to support our young people, I think can be helpful.
Did you guys, I'm just curious if anyone else on here received an allowance growing up? No.
My parents told me, we are allowing you to live in our house. Allowance was what white children in the suburbs got. And so it was different when we were growing up.
I think my mom tried it for like 1 month, and that was it. She just, I don't know if she forgot, she just stopped.
Yeah. I think my parents would incentivize like good grades. So I think I would get money for like, if I made like all A's or $5 per A or something like that. But I don't think I got like a continuous allowance. And I realized for my children, they actually benefit more from not having an allowance than getting one, because but I'm not saying it's really a benefit, but I mean, they benefit, but it's probably not beneficial because I will kind of manage what I feel like they need versus what they want. And if I feel like they need it, I'll buy it, as opposed to saying, here, you get $20 a week or $20 a month. And when you save up enough, you can get it. I feel like I should move to that so that they can understand.
Tasha is the money Ayatollah. the Ayatollah of Moolah at the house, You know, Madam Principal, correct me if I'm wrong. You're the author of a book, "Let's Win the Money Game for Teens." Am I correct? Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, and now, and I look at the word game, of course, and game almost invokes this idea that there's a winner and a loser, and I've discovered that when we talk about money, many people see it that way, that they're winners and that they are losers. How do we get our children to think from a win-win perspective that, you know, I mean, for example, we have a president right now who is playing a winner-loser money game with tariffs. How do we get to a place where we're not looking at money as somebody gets it, somebody is losing it, but that it's, you know, it can be equitable?
Yeah, I mean, I consider, again, you know, myself to be a part of the movement of financial wellness for all, right? That everyone deserves to be able to pay for their home, have the standard, you know, quality of life, take a vacation, you know, all those types of things. But it is, like you said, very true that in a capitalist society, right, and where we have 1% of the population dominating the majority of the wealth, right? The injustice is real. But again, waiting on someone else to fix this problem, as opposed to from a grassroots level, from the community, our churches, our schools, doing this work to empower people is where we have to land. But I want to also speak to what I heard in that question as well, is the notion of trauma that is related to finance, right? When we think about individuals who have lived in poverty, in severe poverty, and the experiences that they have had, how that has shaped their psyche, right? Has shaped their decisions. You know, it gives reason for us to understand why this conversation has been so hush hush. And as we look at our people, right, through generations, how we as Black people were brought to this country to mobilize and to be the engine that built economic wealth, not for us, but for our white brothers and sisters through generations. So we were not paid a dime, and we were never offered the reparations. And so we're dealing with generations and century-long trauma. And it is by no means a panacea that we're going to be able to just wave this wand and say, oh yeah, now everything's going to be great. You know, teach financial literacy. April is financial literacy month. Yay, give your kids an allowance and all will be well. This work is deeply seated in the community. It's deeply seated in generations and in our souls. But it's the right work to do and urgent work to do. And so, you know, my books, you know, this is the children's version, Let's Win the Money Game. And then I created a teenage version, which is like a get to work book. So it has various connections to videos and questions and worksheets and all these types of things that teenagers can complete. But the premise of this metaphor of, you know, let's win the money game is that learning about money really is grounded upon rules, right? And once you learn the rules of how to navigate personal finance, it increases the likelihood that you will win. Not to say that you won't still experience injustices, right? Like redlining was an injustice for our people, and so many other historic and present day issues that we still have to work to overcome. But this knowledge and this information hopefully does at least provide a framework, provides wisdom to pass on to the next generation.
Absolutely. Now, I know, you know, we talk about trying to have these conversations with children and, you know, helping them. But what do you do when your child just isn't interested? I mean, you want to sit them down and talk about the budgeting, and I'm like, Mom, I don't really care about that. Or as long as I have my basic needs, you guys figure that out. That's like adult stuff. Like I'll get to that point when I move out and I'll learn. Like, what do you do when your child is not interested in what you're trying to share?
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, kids, they have different seasons of life. Kids are just little humans like all of us. You don't always feel like going, right? We don't always feel like doing whatever it is that we need to do. But again, we understand the importance of teaching these lessons. So it does require then that the adults that we are maybe a bit more creative, right? Like today, maybe we are going to read this book, or today we are going to read this game. Or if you have an older child, there are these Netflix documentaries you can watch, how to get smart with money, I believe it's called. And the second one, Get Smart with Money and How to Get Rich. And Barack Obama, former president, has a series called Working, What We Do All Day. And so you can try to find what interest does your child have. Maybe they've expressed an interest in baking. Let's go to a bakery and let's talk to the bakery owner. I'm sure they would be willing to share some information, so you can really get creative and innovative in terms of how you engage with your children.
I like that.
So Jasmine, my son is 19. My daughter is 26. And I haven't done the best of educating them when it comes to, because I'm just learning a lot of stuff in the last couple of years myself. So where would I begin with them? And I say this: my son went to the airport, and he would hate me to tell this, but he's not listening right now, right? So he went to the airport because he bought his ticket to go to Oakwood. Alumni weekend, he did it all by himself, had it all planned out. He did it all by himself. Everything was planned. Yep, everything's planned. I was proud of him. And he went to the airport, and as he's driving there, I said, "All right, son, where you gonna park at?" He said, "I'm gonna park at the airport." I'm like, "Okay, all right. So you paying for parking?" He said, "Paying for parking?" Like he was just so shocked.
Yeah.
I'm like, where did I go wrong with that one? But yeah, what can I tell my 19, soon to be 20, and my 27
your son is on the phone right now, Keenan. Yeah, he's talking about you right now in public.
Yeah. So Keenan, first and foremost, just sincere gratitude for the question and for your heart, right? And again, honoring that this is a safe space. Whenever we're talking about money, we really do need to lower that affective filter and just make sure that people feel safe to ask the question, to be able to say, hey, you know what, I messed up on this, or I got this right, because we learn from each other. So my son is 14, my husband and I were still figure things out as we go. So you're farther along in your journey. So we learn from each other. But your question makes me think about a conversation I had with one of our teachers a few weeks ago. She said, she has older children, and she was like, they need a little bit of help. And so we just brainstormed some ideas together. One of those ideas was to book a complimentary session for her daughter. But obviously she would probably have to pay for it. But, book her an appointment with a financial planner or a financial advisor, right? At age 26, I'm sure he has a job or some form of employment. And so being able to talk with somebody who can walk him through, like, pardon me, walk her through how much should I be investing and all those types of things. That's a gift, right? So, we love to give gifts, but we also need to give gifts that will have a lifelong value and have a return on that investment. And so meeting a financial planner is one idea and she loved that idea when we brought it up. So that's why I'm sharing that one. Another one was to watch one of these documentaries together. Maybe you have a family movie night. Hey, we're going to all sit and watch How to Get Rich, and we're going to have a discussion about it. Or maybe you all are going to have a book club about, one of the books that is of interest to you and your family, and also to your children. So I think there's a variety of ways, but I think at the crux of it is that we have to invest the time. If we're not teaching our children, who else is?
Right.
And so never abdicate our responsibility to teach our children, to teach the next generation. And yeah, it definitely requires time. Sometimes we may not feel like we have the time. Those three ideas may be helpful in some way.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to say this, and I know I'm talking a lot, but my oldest, she's a nurse, and she's living with me right now. Thank God, praise God, right, that she's a nurse. That part, and so just today, I know she can't hear me, but just today, she's like, "Hey, Dad, let's do X, Y, and Z." And I said, well, how about you pay for it? She said, nah, I'm on a budget. I can't do it. I said, what?
Yeah.
And your budget list. I mean, you have a limitless budget. Yeah. That's
Yeah, I'm like,
They said, Keenan, your daughter's on the line. Yeah, he's talking about you too. Yeah.
But it's funny you should say that, Keenan, because I was going to say, we talk about teaching, like more of a sit down talk, but a lot of times our behaviors as parents and how they see us handle money is the, they can hear us tell them the right thing, but they're all watching us sometimes do the wrong thing. So even educating ourselves, I think, is a good step in, modeling for our children.
Yeah.
We should do.
There's something, Sister Principal, that you said a few moments ago, and it kind of pushes me to ask the question about the uncomfortable relationship that Christianity has with money. I mean, our songs, I'd rather have Jesus, silver and gold, as though it's a binary. You get one or the other. I noticed that the Presbyterians out in the suburbs don't sing those songs, but is it a spiritual virtue to want to be rich? Should we want to be rich?
That's a great question, and very deeply loaded and philosophical. I believe that God wants us all to be well and wants us to be whole, and money is a tool in that process. But he did also, I believe, say that the poor we will always have with us, right? And so there is this reality of the fact that maybe not everyone is going to get the information or receive the information.
I mean, everybody can't be rich or nobody's rich.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
But I think in the church, I agree that we have more of a responsibility to teach that both things can be true, right? And also when you have more resources, you're able to give. I see someone in the chat say, I want to be rich. My son actually asked me that question. He's asked me that a couple times because I'm writing about this topic, I'm teaching about this topic, I'm sharing about this topic. And so he, when he asked me this question, I actually answer and say, I want to be comfortable. So that's my answer. I want to be comfortable and I want to be able to help. And so I believe that, there's a difference also between rich and wealthy, right? So rich maybe means you get a lot of money, but maybe you're spending it just as much. 61% of Americans, live paycheck to paycheck. So it's not about how much money you make or how much money it's how much money you can keep. Money you can turn over and flip and invest and make your money work for itself. Passive income, like all these ideas that we really need to do a better job of teaching our young people. So I believe that it lives in the church. If it has to do with helping people to be well, helping people to be whole, that's our work of faith. That's the work of the believer.
I think Rosalie asked, name four poor people in the Old Testament. There are a bunch of poor people in the Old Testament. I mean, but we're not talking poverty. What we're talking about is rich, and rich is a relative term. That means in comparison to others, I have more than my fair share. And I'm just wondering, as a spiritual ambition, is it a spiritual virtue to wish to be rich? It's as one prophetic soothsayer said, more money, more problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just
who said that, Tom? Who said that?
I think it was that the prophet Biggie.
I have another book to recommend. This is Poverty by America. It's by Matthew Desmond. He's a sociologist, and he basically talks about that we all contribute to keeping the poor impoverished, right? By the decisions we make, how we consume, what we buy, all these types of things. And so this was also a very eye-opening book to read, and he calls us to be poverty abolitionists, is what he calls it in his text. So this idea that we all have a responsibility to our brother, and that's very biblical, right? Like we sum up the commandments in this way: love God and love your neighbor, right? And so our neighbors are also those who have less means than us, and open before the grace of God, like we all would be, in a bad situation. So we have to continue to have empathy, love, and respect for those who may not have as much as we have, and then also respond to that. So Micah 6:8 says, what does the Lord require of us? To do justice and to walk humbly with the Lord. And so I do really believe this financial literacy, financial education, financial empowerment movement is also directly related to social justice. And therefore, it's a space for us as believers to live in and to walk in by the grace of God.
Yeah, and Jasmine, you said something right. I mean, you've been saying everything you've been saying is great. But I'm at a new church right now, and one of the things that we're trying to develop at Shiloh, we put it into our discipleship plan, is financial literacy.
Great.
Because that is just that's so important. We must do that. So just when you said that social justice, that just triggers something right there for me.
Yeah, because Pastor Keenan, like we can't expect people to be able to focus on learning necessarily about some of these biblical truths if they're just struggling like to wake up in the morning like, where's my next meal coming from? And so we need to meet the basic needs, and that's what Jesus did when he was here on earth. He met people's basic needs, he healed them, he told them to come to him. And so I love that. You all are doing amazing work. I'm so inspired.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. What are some of the things our churches can do? I mean, because of course, we're talking about parents teaching children, but even in church, we can find opportunity. I know some churches host, like you were saying, the Dave Ramsey, the money makeover, and things like that. But I feel like sometimes that's a one-time thing, and then it doesn't happen again. So, what are some more frequent, recurring things that churches can do to make sure that this is like almost a built-in curriculum throughout the year?
Yeah. So I think the ideas that you all have shared, Pastor GP, with the baby dedications and an entrepreneurship day, Pastor Keenan also making reference to this as a part of the discipleship curriculum are beautiful ideas. Ideas that I didn't have, right? Like, so this is the beauty of synergy and working together and sharing these ideas and then helping to replicate them in other spaces. I think in addition to those ideas, we can go back to a little bit some of the foundation, and that is, when you have youth church. So I've been invited to speak at a youth church and talk about financial literacy for teens. I know Troy Levy, who is also a very powerful speaker and very knowledgeable about financial literacy, having him come and speak and share this information with your congregation or with specifically the young people. But if we don't schedule it, Tasha, right, like it just happen. So as we're looking at the master schedule for the year or for the next few years in our churches, in our schools, and in our communities, in our homes, right, we just have to be very intentional. So again, those 2 points that I started with that have been, I hope, illustrated throughout our talk today is that it's important to be explicit and to provide exposure.
I just want to announce that after Alumni Weekend, I want to announce the construction of the Gamal T. Alexander outhouses that will be named after him. He says that he wants to be, rich enough to have something named after him at Oakwood. And Gamal, you've got your wish now. And
the outhouses.
I just want you to know, whenever people at Oakwood having a moving experience, they will remember you.
Now, might I suggest one thing that Jasmine did not say, but I think we should say for her: every church should buy in bulk "Let's Win the Money" game.
All
Pass it out to
right.
their members.
Yes, and we're going to make sure we put that information in our description because sometimes you need a tool to help get you there, and Jasmine has provided that for us, a nice book for teens and younger kids. And some of our churches are trying to get their AY going. They're trying to get the young people involved again. Let's talk about money. That might bring in
about money.
Yeah, they're like, oh, that's something I can relate to. So this would be great. And someone said, if stewardship were properly put out there and taught, I believe we could really move forward. Yeah, we probably wouldn't need to do as many of these fundraising campaigns that we do if we had financially literate members. We could just be like, oh, we need to build a church, and everybody be like, all right, bring my offer next week. All right, done. You know, I guess that's an ideal world, but
it's a good stewardship for churches to send all of their tithe dollars away. That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother show.
What do you think there,
Tally? I don't know. You
I don't know. I'm retired. These are things I don't think about much. But you know, I figured with the bright minds of the upsetters, I thought when we talk about stewardship and, you know, managing your own resources, I just was wondering, you know, I mean, to put that responsibility on others, you know. I mean, here's the money, you go manage it for me. I just think that it's not fair to put all that responsibility on others.
I wonder if how many, because I was told that only a third of the people actually come to church will even return tithes.
30%.
Is that meant? Is that
30%?
Yeah.
30%?
No, yeah, I think you're right. It is 30%.
Okay. All right. Well.
But anyway, Jasmine, we just want to thank you for being here. I do want to give you a chance. If there's something, I know there was so much we wanted to cover. If there's something that like is pressing that you definitely want to share before we go, open it up.
No, just my heart is so full to have had this conversation today. I admire you for new friends and those who were watching live and those who will watch the rebroadcast. I think just the reminder again that financial illiteracy is expensive. It will catch up to you. And so we just really have this great ability to teach our young people. No one else, we can't be looking at anyone else to do that. And so may God help us as we train up the next generation to build wealth, to manage that wealth responsibly, and to help build up the kingdom for his glory.
I love that. Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. This is great conversation. I think I'm already going to set up a little financial literacy summer school for my girls.
Nice.
We're going to take them through the gamut. But thanks.
And Tally, answer your phone when I call you about that money you owe me, man.
Oh, mercy. And thank you to all of our viewers and your comments in the chat. They were also helpful and added other perspectives to the conversation. So thank you for being here with us. And we'll see you back here next week. Same time, same place.
Buy the book. Buy the book.
That's right. Hope everyone has a productive and financially fit week.
Yes. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Good night.